Hi guys. Didn't get a chance to do anything yesterday. Actually, I've lost a sermon because I was going to do 4 this week, but in between having so many people in here trying to help me figure out how to run Microsoft Word and being Nita's chauffeur and just doing stuff around here, I didn't get a chance. I don't know what I did with it, so we're just going to do this one for this week. Maybe I'll find it. We'll do it next week. So the title of this one is The Sons of Promise, Preparing the Heart for Galatians 3:5. I tell you, I'd rather wrestle a bear than deal with that computer sometimes. That thing is so frustrating. So what we're looking here is a bridge between 1 and 2, a jumping off verse, Galatians 3:3. Are you so foolish, having begun in the Spirit, are you now made perfect by the flesh? See, that's what, you see the flesh. You walk in the flesh. You look in the mirror every day. The flesh is what we look at. And so what happens is our flesh becomes the point of interest, the point that we focus on. We don't see the Spirit. We don't see the inner man. And so this is what's happened with them. So Paul moves from Peter's moment of fear to Galatians, the moment of confusion. Both are rooted in the same nature. The temptation to return to the flesh after the beginning of the Spirit. The Galatians were not abandoning Christ. They were adding to him. They were not rejecting grace. They were not mixing it. I remember when I was a little boy, and I learned how to read out of the Bible. So, I was reading about the 10 Commandments and all that stuff, and I thought, well, if God loves me just because he died on the cross and everything, then if I do these commandments, he'll even love me more. See, that's the point. That's what they were doing. They were thinking, oh, well, if I'm here by grace, then I take all these things that belong to Israel and I put them on me. I'm going to be a super Christian. I'm going to be a super servant of God. And he's really going to think good about me. But it doesn't work that way, because if God changes the program and you're doing things that belong to the other program, then you're disobeying God. And this is what was happening. They were not denying the Spirit. They were supplementing him with law. And Paul calls it what it is, bewitchment, a spell, a deception. Because the law always looks spiritual. The law looks holy, and it is holy. The only problem is the loophole in the holy law is that we can't do it. The law always looks disciplined. The law always looks impressive. But the law cannot produce life. It's not life. It's a law. The law can only judge you, innocent or guilty. It has no power other than that. The law can't produce righteousness. You know, I've drove with people. It doesn't bother me, but I've drove with people, and anytime a police officer gets behind them, whether they've done anything wrong or not, they get so nervous, it's crazy. You know, I mean, the worst thing they can do is give you a ticket if you're a law-abiding citizen, and you know, 50-50 chance they're right, you know, but it's just a ticket. The law cannot produce fruit. You can do all the law in the world, but it's not going to change you, because what happens is the only fruit you produce is rotten fruit, pride. The law cannot produce sons. It'll never make us sons. Even Abraham and all those guys, you know, from Abraham down through, and especially when the law came in fling, they were servants, not sons. We're sons. They were waiting to become sons. They're still waiting to become sons. Remember what Peter said? He said in Acts 15 that we will be saved even as they. Well, the emphasis is even as they are. So they're already saved. We're waiting for our salvation when Christ comes back. So they can't be sons in the old kingdom until he comes back and restores things. We're sons by right of the death, burial, and resurrection. Now, the Jews who were saved during this time are the same as us, because they've been put down on the line without hope and without God in the world, so God can save them without distinction. Paul reminds them, Galatians 3:6, even as Abraham believed God and it was accounted him for righteousness. Abraham was justified by faith, not by circumcision. Faith came first, circumcision came later. Abraham was accepted by promise, not by performance, because his performance sucked. I mean, you read Hebrews and it takes all the stupid things he did, you know. He went up to Haran, he took his dad, took Lot. Came down into the land, took Lot. Got a drought, didn't trust God, went into Egypt, took Lot. They come back out. He does it. What does he do while he's in Egypt? He tells, hey, tell him you're my sister, not my wife. What does he do when he's in the land? Tell him you're my sister, my wife. He had a lot of mistakes. He did a lot of things wrong. So it couldn't be on performance. It had to be on faith. Abraham was made righteous by belief, not behavior, because his behavior is as bad as ours. If Abraham was justified by faith, then his children must walk by faith. If Abraham received the promise, then his children must live in the promise. If Abraham was made righteous without the law, then righteousness cannot come by the law. Paul is preparing the Galatians and us for the great contrast. Okay, so what's happening here is we're children of Abraham. We're not Jews. We're children of Abraham through belief. He is the point that God says, if you believe, I'll justify you by righteousness. Now, that's not the first time he's done it, but he's the spearhead. It's like if you talk to a Jewish man, I've known a few, and none of them say, well, we start back with Noah, or we start back with Adam. No, they start with Abraham. We start with Abraham because he is counted for righteousness because he believed. We're counted righteous because we believe. They believe it's Abraham because he's got the sign of circumcision. He's the first in the line. He's not the first person. God didn't poof him out of somewhere. He was in the line of Eber, of the line of Shem. But he's counted as the father of them all because God started with him. And he's counted the father of them all for us because God started with him. Remember, it was to anybody and everybody, but they became without hope and without God in the world because they rejected everything. The Tower of Babel was the point of distinction, and then sometime after that, about 200 some odd years, God called Abraham, and he started something new. So they were getting confused because they were mixing it all up, and we can't really blame them because churches are doing that now. Christians are doing that now. I was on Facebook. I was on Facebook, and this guy was Jehovah this and Jehovah that, or Yahweh this and Yahweh that, and you can't say Jehovah because it didn't have J's back then. And that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I can't say Jehovah because I'm not speaking that language. I speak English, you know. I read my King James Bible. It's fine. People are silly that way sometimes. But they're trying to set themselves up as we're better than you because we're keeping this and we're doing that. When all they're really doing is putting on a pageant show to show how great they are, how good they are. Ain't God lucky to have them? So what is the law? The curse of the law versus the promise. The law demands, the promise gives. The law curses, the promise blesses. The law exposes, the promise redeems. I'd a lot rather be redeemed than exposed. The law reveals sin, the promise reveals Christ. The promise covered sins, the promise paid for sins. The sins are no more because they're paid in Christ. So what we're doing here is what we want you to think about is the closing thought. Faith is the empty hand extended to receive all that grace freely gives. Faith is the empty hand. I had a rich man tell me one time this. He says, you cannot receive money if your hand's like this. You have to receive money like this. And what he was saying is you have to give and be willing to give and accept to become wealthy. If you're like this and you're holding on to everything you got, you may get money, but you're Ebenezer Scrooge. It does you or nobody else good. But if your hand's open, then you're a blessing to yourself and to others around you. And that's what the promise does. It paid the price, the hand was open, and the hand's still open, accepting any and all who receive it. When you add that stuff to it, what you're doing is closing that hand so you're not able to function and help anybody else, nor yourself, or let God in to help you. Because once you add works to grace, it's no more grace. It's a work system, and you're holding tightly to everything that you have, not realizing that it's already given to you. All you have to do is accept it. Put your hand out. Receive it. God's a good God. He only gave the law because they didn't accept his Jehovah's and grace back in Exodus 19. Excuse me. He had all them time. He took them out of Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, fed them, gave them water, did all this stuff. And what did they do? They complained. It's, if it was a modern day, it'd be like, don't make me turn this car around. That's what they were. They just overbearingly stubborn. And so he couldn't deal with them, Jehovah's and grace, so he offered them condition. And that condition was the law. And what they say? Oh yeah, we can do that. That will be our righteousness, it says in Deuteronomy. Not you'll be our righteousness. Not we're unable to do it, Lord. You see how we fail. We have to rest upon you. And he said, no, we can do it. And that's what these Galatians are doing, saying, okay, you got us this far, God, and we'll take it from here. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. Because you couldn't get there. You had to believe. You had to do the one thing that you can do without doing any work, and that's believe. And that's what you have to rest in. He did the work. He accomplished it. He's covered it. It's his life living in you now. And now you can rest in him. All that other stuff is not going to mean a hill of beans. All it is detracting from what God has done for you. Give all that stuff up. Read your King James Bible. Find out where you belong in it. And do that. God bless. Have a wonderful day. Hopefully I'll find that other sermon. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye.